I'm Miss Shannon, and I'd like to welcome you to our March Middles Art Project. It's called Pastel Me About It. So, for this month, we wanted to give you some skills that you might be able to use to make something that you could possibly submit to our Portland's Create program. So, beginning on April 1st through April 24th, you can submit a piece of art and it can be part of our contest. So, I'm really excited to walk you through some different techniques on how to use oil pastels that you might be able to use to create something for Portland Creates. So, you should have already received your materials from the youth department at the library for this project. You are going to need one additional material aside from the take and make bag that you already got. So, you are going to need yourself a good pair of scissors. So I am going to let you run and get a good pair of scissors, and then I'll have you meet me back here and we'll go through the contents of your take and make bag. So these are the contents of what you will find in your take and make bag. You will have a set of 12 different colored oil pastels. You'll have 4 sheets of art paper. You'll have 2 sheets of tissue paper that's folded up. And you'll also have a little separate bag that contains some cotton swabs and also a little container of baby oil. And remember, from your house, you need to find a good pair of scissors that we'll be able to use. So we are going to go over 4 different blending techniques with oil pastels today. And the first one, we're going to use a cotton swab to blend our colors together. So for the sake of doing 4 different techniques, I am going to take one of my pieces of art paper and cut it into 4 even pieces. So to do that, I'm just going to fold it in half. Lengthwise, or the hot dog way is how we used to say it when I was in elementary school. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut right in half down that center line. And this is just for practice, so I'm not worried about making it perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my cut piece, fold it again, and cut that in half. And then I'm going to do that again with the other piece. So then I'll end up with one little piece of paper for each of our different 4 techniques today. Definitely not perfect happening over here. All right, there we go. So we have our 4 little pieces of art paper. I'm going to scoot these aside. We'll just work with one for now. And so the colors that I'm going to use for this first technique, I want it to look like a sunset or a sunrise. So we're going with the color palette of red, orange, and yellow. And one thing that's important to keep in mind when you're blending colors together is that when you start at the top of your page, you want to start with the lightest color and then you want to move down towards the darkest color. And you always want to move down on your page from light to dark and not move back up because you don't want your darker colors to get back mixed in with your lighter colors. So we're going to start by coloring with our yellow at the top of your page. And so I am applying, I would say, a medium amount of pressure with my oil pastel. I don't want to leave too much white showing through from my paper, but I'm also not pressing super hard either. I'm just kind of in that medium in between pressing really hard and pressing really lightly. So I've got my yellow. It's a good band of yellow going on right there. Make sure I don't have too much white space showing. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna move on to my medium color. So when you go on to the next color, you're gonna overlap the lighter color by a little bit. So I'm starting my orange a little bit where the yellow was. And so same thing, I'm applying like a medium amount of pressure as I'm coloring with the pastel. I don't want to press really hard, but I also want to make sure that the white space from the paper is not showing through too much. And you're going to get some variations. There's a piece of red in my orange pastel from when I used it earlier. You can see that right there. But you know what? The cool thing about pastels is that they blend together. So when we blend these all together, you will not even notice. All right, there's my middle color. So we're ready to move on to the darkest color, which is red. Again, I'm going to start the red overlapping where the orange was a little bit. I'm not going to press too hard, but I'm not going to leave too much white space from the paper showing through. And see, I'm already kind of covering up that red from before. Isn't this kind of looking like a sunrise or a sunset? I love these colors, they're so pretty. All right, so I'm gonna go back over with the yellow up here a little bit. I kind of missed this corner. All right, I think we're ready to try our first blending technique. So the first technique is to take a cotton swab and you're gonna go over the colors. Remember, you're gonna start at the top with your lightest color and you're gonna move your way down. You're not gonna go from the bottom up because you don't want your darker colors into your lighter colors. So you're just gonna take your cotton swab and lightly, with a little bit of pressure, go over where you colored with the pastel. And you can see where the two colors meet. When you go over it with your cotton swab, they blend together really nicely and make it look really pretty. So I'm still moving down my colors, getting into my red now. And you can see there's color coming off onto the white cotton swab, which is why you don't want to move back up your page, because if you did, you would get red up in the yellow and the orange. All right, and that is how you use the cotton swab to blend your oil pastels. We're ready for our next technique. Our second technique is to use tissue paper to blend our oil pastels together. So you have 2 sheets of tissue paper in your Take and Make bag. I'm gonna unfold it here and I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller so it's easier to work with. It already has a center fold, so I'm just cutting along that center fold line to get half the size. To set this aside, you can use that later. We're gonna take this and fold it. Then we're gonna fold it again. The idea is we're gonna fold this down into a small piece of tissue paper to work with that we're gonna use to blend. So we're gonna keep folding. Fold it another time this way. We're gonna fold it up this way. We're gonna fold it again. It's gonna get pretty small here. And then we're gonna fold it again. So we end up with a really small rectangle that we're gonna work with. We're gonna use this to blend. So if you would like, you could also, I've seen it where people fold it into a little triangle. If you prefer to fold it into a triangle, that would work too. So we're gonna set this aside because we're gonna use it later. color palette for this technique, we're using blues for the color of the ocean. So again, we're going to start with the lightest color and we're going to work our way down to the darkest color. So the first color I'm going to use here is the lighter of the two blues in your set. I'm applying a medium amount of pressure here. I'm going over it a couple times so that I don't have a ton of white space showing through from the paper. It's looking pretty good. I'm already starting to feel like I'm looking at the ocean. It's making me think of spring break. It's just around the corner. All right, so there's our lightest of our three colors. Now we're ready for the medium color. Remember, we're gonna kind of overlap that first color. I'm gonna start with my darker blue over top of the lighter blue a little bit. And then I'm gonna work my way down with some medium pressure. Again, not wanting a whole lot of the white from the paper to show through. I think blue is probably my favorite color. It just has a very calming effect. Looking at it just reminds me so much of water, and I love all things related to lakes and oceans and pools. And it reminds me of summertime, which is my very favorite season. All right, that looks pretty good. So we're ready for our darker color. So we're gonna start that overlapping the dark blue a little bit. And this is our purpley color. This is like the deepest, darkest color of the bottom of the ocean. Now remember, we're keeping our colors light to dark, so we want to work from the top of the page and go down. We don't want to go bottom up, because we don't want to get our darker colors over the top of our lighter colors. Again, I'm applying some medium pressure here, so I don't have a ton of white space showing through. A little bit is okay, because I think that kind of helps it look like the ocean. But we don't want a lot of paper coming through with no pastel on it. All right, that's looking pretty good. I think we're ready to blend. So we're gonna take our little piece of tissue paper that we folded, and we're gonna start at the top. We're gonna go from the left side of our paper to the right side and press lightly and work our way down as it blends. So you kind of gotta hang on to your paper a little bit so you don't lose it. I'm going into my middle color now. You can see the color that's coming off on the tissue paper. And as one color meets another color, they're starting to blend together a little bit. Oh, it looks so pretty. I love it. Doesn't it look like the ocean? All right. I love how that looks. It looks really good. So that's our second technique, using tissue paper. We're ready to try our third technique now. Our third technique is to use your finger to blend your oil pastel colors together. So to show you this technique, we're using some yellows and greens. This color palette reminds me of like a spring field. I'm definitely getting some spring vibes with these colors. So again, we're starting with the lightest color, moving into a medium color, a lighter green, and then we're going to our darkest color, which is a dark green. So as we've been doing so far, as we color with our lightest color, we're going to apply a medium amount of pressure, and get some good coverage so we don't have a lot of white showing through from the paper. Get a nice band of our lightest color yellow going here. Didn't get the edge real well. There we go. All right, that's looking pretty good. We're ready for our medium color, which is going to be the light green. We're going to overlap the yellow a little bit. Apply medium coloring pressure. Make sure we're not letting too much white show through from the paper. Ooh, doesn't that look like pretty green grass or like a nice spring field? It almost even makes me smell the smell of fresh cut grass. Do you like that smell? I think some people do and some people don't, but I happen to like it. All right, so we've got a little bit of that medium color overlapping our yellow. I think we're ready for our dark green now. Here we go. We're going to overlap that light green a little bit. Apply enough pressure so that we're not getting too much white space coming through. Ooh, looks good with this dark green. Let's get a little bit more of that color on here. I'm using too much of one side. You can see my pastel is getting kind of pointy on one side. Got to even it out. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now, you're going to use your finger and start at the top and go down and blend these colors together. I feel like if you use your pointer finger, that applies too much pressure, but if you use your middle finger, it's kind of the perfect amount of pressure. So that's the finger that I'm going to use. And we're going to start at the top. I feel like this technique is my actual favorite. It kind of doesn't require any other materials. I feel like the warmth of your skin kind of transfers to the paper, and I just love the softness of how it looks between the colors. All right, now keep in mind still, you want to make sure you start at the top and go down. You don't want to bring the darker color up into your lighter colors. So, going down and blending the light green into the dark green. Oh my gosh, I love how this looks. It looks really good. Kind of going over the rest of it to soften it up a little bit. It looks so pretty. I love it. And I will tell you from my previous practicing, these pastels do a really nice job of washing right off. So you won't be stuck with a green finger for the rest of the day. So that is how you use finger blending to put these colors together, and we are now ready for our fourth and final technique. So for our fourth and final oil pastel blending technique, we're going to use baby oil. And the color palette that I chose to show you this technique is pink, going into darker red, going into darker purple. And this kind of reminds me of the color of spring flowers. So again, we're starting with our lightest color, moving into a medium color, and then ending with the darkest color. I like this pink. It's a nice pink color. It's not too pinky pink, and it's not too red. So I'm applying medium pressure here again, making sure that I'm not leaving too much white showing through. Kind of going back over some a little bit. When you're looking for paper to use with your pastels, you want to use heavier weight paper. I think this is 70-pound paper. It just takes in the color more nicely. All right, there's our pink. We're gonna overlap the pink with our red a little bit. Do it like that. Definitely is giving me some spring flower vibes. Again, applying medium pressure, not wanting a ton of white to show through. There we go. I think that's good. And we're ready for our darkest color, which is purple. We're going to overlap the purple over the red a little bit. And get some good coverage. So using the baby oil is going to give it a little bit of a different effect. Almost kind of makes it look like watercolor paints to me. We're almost ready to try to blend these together. Get rid of that white a little bit right there. All right, I think we're ready to blend. So you have a little cup of baby oil in your take and make bag. You don't have a lot because it really doesn't take very much at all. In fact, when I was practicing, I was finding that when I completely saturated the end of my cotton swab with baby oil, it was too much. So you almost want to just barely put the tip of your cotton swab into the baby oil and then kind of get rid of the excess on the side of your cup here. All right, so as we've done before, we're going to start at the top of our paper and we're going to work our way down. We're going to glide over the pastel, back and forth. You can feel like the waxiness of the pastels as you do this. It feels kind of cool. And you can see as I'm going from one color to the next, how it's blending and almost has like a paint look to it. And that's all the amount of baby oil that I needed. You really don't need very much. And there you have it. That's how you use baby oil to blend oil pastels. Thank you so much for joining us for Pastel Me About It today. As a review, we looked at 4 different techniques for blending oil pastels. We started with cotton swab, then we tried tissue paper, then we used finger blending, followed by baby oil. So there are 4 different ways that you can practice blending your oil pastels together. You may experiment on your own and find even more ways that you can blend your pastels together. I hope you've had fun with this project. We would love to see what you've come up with. If you'd like to send us some photos, you can send them to the email address that's on your info sheet in your Take and Make bag or at the bottom of your screen. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.